Today's guest makes a bold claim right out of the gate. We are not alone, and the evidence may have been hiding in plain sight inside NASA's own solar archives. Drawing from nearly a decade of research into astrobiology and technosignatures, this conversation challenges not just what we know about space, but how we think about the sun, science, and our place in the universe. Stay with us today.
Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Hey there, David. I'm so excited to talk with you today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Todd.
It's going to be fun. This is an interesting topic, and I'm excited to get into it with you just to learn and to share this with everybody out there. Now, I want to point out that I actually ran across or got introduced to you a little bit through Matt and Rusty there in Florida in MUFON. Yeah, I had a fun time talking with them recently as well. So are you also in Florida at this time?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I work with Matt and Rusty all the time, and they're fantastic investigators. Well, Matt's the state director, really good at what he does, and so enjoy the crew.
Yeah, it was fun talking with them, getting some different stories from them. And then when we were talking after the podcast, we were saying, there's this solar show, this book that you need to get into and talk with, David. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to tell you, I have a bunch of questions here, but let's get into it first. How did you actually get into all this? I'm curious, was it UFO to solar or solar to UFO, or how did you decide to look into this?
It really happened serendipitously, where I was going to Embry-Riddle University as a student back in it started in 2013, but in 2015, I was looking at the weather before I started the next semester. So it was sometime in January, but I wanted to see, and in Florida, the weather changes all the time. And I live in DeLand, I work in Daytona Beach, so I was going to the Daytona Beach campus at the time, and I wanted to see what the weather was going to do for us throughout the day. So if I went to class, do I bring an umbrella or not? I don't know. So I simply opened up a weather 4-hour loop where you see the clouds moving across, and then it just loops every 4 hours. And I noticed that the whole state was clear, except halfway through the loop, you see these 5 circular clouds throughout the state open up and disappear. And I spent 22 years in the Army. I'm a helicopter pilot. I've spent lots of times flying through crazy weather, but I've never seen anything that looked like what I was seeing on the weather loop. And so a microburst maybe, but there was no clouds before it. It just looked like pressure gradients hitting the state, and almost right over the major cities, but a couple of them were rural, and it made no sense. So number one, once the loop cleared, there was no clouds. I just went to class, but it bothered me. I couldn't figure out why there would be these macro bursts and then disappear within a 4-hour period, and nobody's reporting weather throughout the state. It was a nice clear day. And I went to space weather. I thought, well, maybe something like a CME or something came off the sun and it affected our planet, where we may have been hit with some sort of forces that created these circular like puffs on the ground that blow out from the center and then dissipate. And I started going through the space solar archives and looking at their loops for the day, where they had like 96, maybe 100 images that you could see the progression of the sun and where all the sun activity is. And the sun was quiet. And this is not making any sense now. So later on in the day, I ran through the loop again for the solar images from, I think it was a C3 sensor on the SOHO satellite that was studying the sun. And I started to see sparkles within the images as they progressed. And every now and then I'd see something that was not a straight line or a sparkle, but almost a shape of some sorts. So I back up the loop for the space weather stuff and the images, and I'd look back and see this shape sitting near the sun or in the space in the background. It may be a V shape or something strange, and So I started noticing oddities, anomalies, and collected a couple of pictures, and I went upstairs to the third floor at Embry-Riddle. That's where the astrophysicists live. Great department and great professors up there, and I thought somebody up there should know something about the SOHO satellite and the imagery. So I walked up and started talking to this gentleman who was a professor, been there forever, and I asked him, do you know anything about SOHO satellite imagery? And he laughed. He goes, oh yeah, what would you like to know? And so I started showing him my little 10 images I had pulled down, and he patted me on the head and goes, well, this is, what do you call it? Camera artifacts, or CTE, where you have issues with the cameras, or it's just maybe cosmic rays hitting the lens. And he walked me through all 10 of my images, and I felt kind of silly because it wasn't my major at the time. And but at the last two, he said, I'm not really sure about these two. That is kind of interesting. I said, so this is interesting to you? And he said, yeah, that's kind of hard to explain. I'm not sure what's going on in this image, but yeah, I just don't know what it is. Man, I was on fire. I went back home and I started looking up everything that was a little unusual in that category that he couldn't describe or relate to me as a common artifact. And I started finding more. And so as I went through more and more images, I'd go back to the same professor. I know I was bugging him, but he was kind enough to let me in his office. Didn't throw me out, which was kind of nice.
Right.
And he walked me through a couple more, and I found a couple more that he couldn't explain. So that kind of started me in this whole genre of looking for things in the NASA solar imagery that they have posted online. Anybody can go to it and see it. And the SOHO is a solar satellite system that has an array of about 11 different sensors looking at the sun, and it reports back to NASA the conditions of the sun, and they feed that into a computer, and they log everything, and they do some predictions off of that. But if you go into Google and you say, well, what other solar satellites are out there, there's plenty. So I went to the main three, which is stereo A and B, where they threw the satellites around a orbit opposite of each other. So these two satellites went around for a 3D view of the sun. And so that's stereo A and B, and then SDO was the latest one in 2006 that was deployed, an 8K system, or a 4K system, I should say. But it's it does a figure eight around the Earth, stays close to us, but it has great photography. I mean, it's really detailed. And as I started going through the archives, I started finding more weird things in the solar satellite imagery archives. And I'd take them and run back to these professors, and eventually they got tired and said, you know what, just you do what you need to do. We got classes to take care of, and since I wasn't in the department, I was kind of interfering, I think. But they gave me plenty of time as I kept barging in on them. But long story short, that's what started it, was a weather check to go to class. And I saw this strangeness happening with the weather loop, and then doing the review of all the solar satellite images, I started seeing things that were not normal.
Yeah.
And that's how it started.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah, I'm going to ask you, do you think these scientists, because you see this in other places too, they've seen so many things that they assume it's all, they can categorize everything. And they think that's it, right? And then they do see something like in your case that is outside of the norm. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. And it makes you wonder, are you guys not looking at all that stuff? Have you just kind of made a judgment? And I think we all do this, right? People see a sample size of something and they think, yeah, I got that. And then you see something really bizarre. Is that kind of what you think's going on with scientists here?
It's exactly that. You stay in the lane that you're trained in. Yeah. I'm talking to astrophysicists at Embry-Riddle that are looking at nothing but physical factors of matter and how it works in space. All these satellite systems that are looking at the sun are simply looking at the mechanical processes and chemical processes on the sun to see what's happening with it, because the sun affects us directly so much. People don't realize most of the weather changes and effects come from the sun. It's not man-made, it's sun-made. Mm-hmm. And when you do that kind of data pull and you're only looking at physical processes. You don't do the astrobiological thing and look for other life in space because it doesn't even dawn on you. You're not trained to look for it. It's not even a part of your training.
Yeah.
And in fact, as of about 3 or 4 years ago, there was only one university that offered studies in astrobiology. That's how rare it is. Astronomy, all day long. Astrophysics, man, we got tons of them.
Yeah.
But when you start talking about life in space, everybody's like, I'm not so sure. So
Well, look,
they're not trained for it.
that's actually a question I was going to ask you a little later, to define astrobiology. Because to me, like, the two words, it seems like it is what it sounds like, but, you know, is that something, what's that defined as? And why
really
are not
is-
people looking at this?
Exactly. It's really looking at life beyond the Earth. So astrobiology is simply saying, is there evidence beyond our planet that can give us indications of life, no matter what level? It could be amoebas, it could be small, single cell, doesn't matter. Is there life off of our planet, and do we have evidence of it? And astrobiologists grapple with that and work with it. And some of the experiments that we sent to the moon or sent to Mars tried to gather that data to see what we were seeing, and is there possible linkage of life even on the Mars surface, of which some reports come back and said, yeah, we've got some life indications. And I think Sean Duffy just last week said that his review of last year's worth of data from Mars indicates that there was evidence of life. He didn't say intelligent life, but evidence of life.
Yeah. Do you think this is a discipline that's about ready to get a little more interesting and, you know, something that more people are going to be looking at?
Yes. Can I just say yes? Or do I need to expound on it? Because if you're watching
Right.
the news, you're seeing it splatter everywhere.
Yeah.
All it takes is watching a little bit of news in this last 3 weeks to realize things are changing for disclosure. And even when Obama, during one of his podcasts, said, yeah, I believe there's aliens, I just don't think they're at Area 51, or there's no structures underneath Area 51, at least I don't know about them.
Yeah.
And then Trump going back and saying, well, that was what he did, was disclosing, sensitive data. And so everybody, as soon as he said that, everybody, oh, so it's true. And so
Yeah.
once you get the government to start acknowledging the incidences that people are having every day. Being a field investigator for MUFON, I have the privilege of seeing all these reports coming in, especially for Florida. We're always in the top 3 for reports coming in the U.S. And it's constant. We're talking people having encounters that are significant, not just emotionally, but some are affected physically. And when you put all the data together, I'm one of those ones that said there's so much data you can't ignore it.
Right.
And I think it really powers the conspiracies that everybody has been talking about, and that it's time. And I think the government has finally folded just because there's so much pressure and so much evidence. Everybody's got a phone that has a camera on it, and so we're getting all sorts of fun things coming in, and the government's got cameras on their flight system, so we get to see that. It's getting to be overwhelming, and everybody in my field has been praying for this time of disclosure, because it's time for us to call it what it is.
I agree. And if they want to keep the tech under wraps for military, fine. But come on, let's disclose, let's admit. I just want to see what one looks like. I want to see what, I mean, I'm content if some of that happens, but
True.
we'll see.
And that's everybody's dream. And in fact, I was a field investigator for the last 11 years and had never seen a UFO up close until about 2 years ago. I was in El Paso, Texas, and I was with my stepson and his wife and family. And they had finished moving, and he's in the Army, and he's a doctor, and she's got her business on the side. So everybody's busy. So I walked outside into the backyard and just laid down on the lounge and looked up at the sky just to catch my breath. And it was near the mountains in El Paso on the west side, and this boomerang looking thing flew over while I was just trying to watch the stars, and empty my mind. And I'm like, I've never seen anything like that, and I'm a pilot. I've seen a lot of stuff. And so I scrambled to get my phone out of my pocket. I scrambled to get it turned on and punched in for the video. And as I thought I had it locked in on my phone, and I'm falling over backwards as it's going over my head at about 4,000 feet, completely silent, huge. I went back to my phone video and got nothing. I'm like, how could I even be a field investigator if I can't get my own videos to work and I'm looking at this stuff? So, yeah, I think if you talk to enough people, they've either seen something unusual in their lifetimes or they know of somebody who saw something unusual. It's everywhere now.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and I want to get on a point that you just made, which is, I think I hear, and you are getting these sightings reported to you. It seems like, I think the government's playing off the fact that we can't capture these things very well on film. I mean, there's something going on with a lot of these, maybe not all, but some, it's whatever surrounds them, however they're moving, that really makes it tough to capture clearly on film. And I think they're playing with that, letting us, oh, that's not, you can't capture a clear picture.
Right.
And I think they're playing that along with that, I think.
It's interesting you say that because we have a nice variety of shapes that people report from like triangles or cubes or pyramids to orbs that are just undulating balls of look like plasma and large ones at that. I've had a case in Florida where a gentleman and his family came in from Houston just to vacation, and he said 10-foot wide ball of energy come up to him from the Gulf because he's looking out over the water. About evening time frame, it was dark, and this ball shot up from the beach area and within 20-30 feet of him, 10 feet high and 10 feet wide, and just stared at him. And he said it undulated like a lava lamp, like there was something going on inside, but it stayed within its shape, but you could see it. He said you could see it wobble a little bit on the surface, and then it floated over him maybe 20 feet and then went over the condos they were staying and disappeared. So we're getting all sorts of descriptions of high strangeness activities happening in Florida, and I get to be a part of that, where I get to see the reports coming in, and we have to try to decipher if it's common or uncommon or unknown. But the variety is amazing, to say the least. And even in my solar satellite pictures that I pulled down from NASA, the variety there is just as amazing. It's very unusual and stuff you've not seen before.
We're going to get into some of those pictures here in a few minutes. I want to say, though, for everybody who's listening and watching, that a lot of our discussion today is going to be surrounding the book that you have, Solar Suspicions.
Yes.
Yes. And some of the things that we will talk about will kind of go in and out of some of those subjects. So for those waiting and listening, one of the things that you may address in your book is maybe humanity's biggest question, like, are we alone in the universe? What do you say about that?
I had not really thought much about it. As a kid, I had an interest. I grew up in a Christian home, mom, dad, older brother, and went to church all the time. It was never a thought about extraterrestrial stuff or ETs or UFOs. It was always like comic book stuff. That's the level I gave it. And I was fortunate enough to live up in Sedona during the summers, Sedona, Arizona, and I bought a book called Chariot of the Gods at that time from a bookstore, and it was kind of like, I don't know if I'm going to get caught with this book and what the parents are going to think about, but I got interested up there for some reason, and I think it was a gentleman by the name of Van Daniken.
Van Daniken.
Yeah, Eric Van Daniken, and he was very articulate on his theory, and it kind of struck me as being a little blasphemous because it didn't go with my paradigm that I grew up with in the church. I don't know of a single pastor out there that's talking about life off the planet. Just, that's not their focus, that's not what you're going to hear. And even some religious circles attribute these sightings to demons or the dark forces. And yet when you talk to the majority of folks who had an encounter, the majority of it is a positive experience. There are some exceptions. And then as I grew up, I kind of kept an eye like, okay, and what do I do with these two paradigms in my head? I'm interested in UFOs, but I really can't talk about it with my family because no one in the family believes them. No one's ever seen anything like it. And so I kind of let it go and started my own family, got married when I was 19, had a couple of kids, joined the Army, did 22 years there. About 17 years of that is flying helicopters. And as soon as I got out in 2006, I went to work as a contractor in Iraq and Afghanistan. When I was in, I did a combat tour 2004, 2005 in Iraq. But I did a contract stint of about 6 years afterwards. So I was in Iraq and Afghanistan for a long time, doing different types of work. Some of it included working with aerostats that have these $1 million camera systems underneath them. You throw the balloon up on a tether, about 2,000 feet, and you scan the area 24, look for the bad guys. And I saw some strange stuff on the camera systems that I'm like, I don't think we have any Apaches or 15s in the area. I'm not sure what I'm seeing here. Nobody called in, but I see lights out there on the horizon. So you just kind of keep that stuff to yourself. You just whatever. But when I got back into going to the university at Embry-Riddle and came across those solar satellite images, that's when it all kicked back again, and my interest in off-world type of intelligence resurged in my life, where I can say it kind of overwhelmed me.
Yeah. Well, the pictures that you sent me, are these the ones that initially set this off for you? Tell me about some of those pictures. I will put it on here so people can see it as we talk about it.
Not a problem. I literally looked for a year through solar satellite imagery, convinced that I was going to find the Holy Grail, something within those camera systems, because they're multi-million-dollar satellites that are taken care of and maintained by the top scientists in the field. It's not my cameras. I'm not snapping them off my phone. NASA gets to take care of all those. And it literally is, to answer your question earlier, why doesn't NASA talk about it, is because I keep zooming in on these images where I see something a little unusual. So I have to blow them up to see what the artifact or what the unusual shape is. And NASA doesn't do that. They just simply archive them and said, here's the day's solar picture, this is what they look like, and here's the CMEs or coronal mass ejections, here's a coronal hole, here's all the filaments. So they talk about all the physical processes, and they simply set out the series of pictures sequentially for people to look at. They archive them by year, by month, by day, and by sensor. And so going through that, you tend to find stuff that NASA overlooks, and that's why I don't go talk to NASA, because I don't want them to stop feeding me the material from these satellites.
Right.
Because it's fascinating, especially the picture you have. I think the one that's totally red is a C2 sensor off the SOHO. And up in the upper right, you'll see a series of lights that are intelligently shaped. And if you know what an asteroid looks like, or you know what a comet looks like, it's one dot. They don't have parking lights around in a shape. They don't travel like that. So as soon as I saw that particular object, I knew I found it. The one that I could go back and show people and say, this isn't a comet, this isn't an asteroid, this isn't some camera artifact, this is an unknown. I don't even know what it is still. I mean, you're looking right at it, and I challenge anybody to tell me what that is.
Yeah, I mean, that should not be in the sun.
Well, it's in the outskirts of the image of the sun. So that camera has 1.8 million for a field of view on side to side, and that was up on the upper right side of the field of view. So the sun is in that image. I just zoomed in on that object.
Okay.
So this is a typical normal C2 image that NASA posted, and it had a little dot up there. I blew it up, and it turns out to be like 8 dots in a perfect pattern with a little bit of, looks like, I don't know, trail, plasma around it. But
What in the world is that?
It's not natural, and that was my first unknown that verified that, or at least validated that my search was not in vain.
Crazy.
Exactly.
It is. I'm looking. I mean, everybody will see it. We'll put it up here, but it's like, what?
What do you do with that,
I can't
right?
even think how you could come up with something for that.
And when I found it, I didn't talk to anybody for about a day or two. I literally shut down. Emotionally, I didn't know what to do with it. I was like, no one's going to believe this. It's sitting in NASA archives, and I found it. Now what do I do?
Yeah.
Do you go talk to a priest? No. You talk to a scientist? Maybe. But again, the astrophysicist will give it all the other, what do I want to say, attributes that could be camera artifacts, something wrong with the sensor, something wrong with the lens, all the different things that they're trained to work with. However, during my search when I was at Embry-Riddle, I did a paper on camera artifacts for solar satellite systems. I wanted to know what the artifacts looked like, so I didn't waste my time seeing something that was common, right? And going, oh, there's a UFO. It's a dot. It's a UFO. I didn't want to do that.
Smart.
So I learned all the artifact side of it so that it made my search a little more efficient.
Well, as we get into these other pictures here in a minute, I'm going to sprinkle some questions across these. What exactly is a technosignature, and why is it kind of an important concept?
Well, it's a great question. I was involved in the world of UFOs and reading about them and understanding them early on, like I said before. So when I started coming across these other objects in solar satellite imagery, I was reading in the 2015 NASA astrobiology roadmap that they publish every year or two for the world. It's just amongst all the scientists that are astrobiologists. And they simply pose questions and show the gaps of knowledge within the field and challenge people to fill in the gaps. I mean, we don't know this, we don't know that. Is there anybody out there that can solve these questions? And in the back on page 150, the 2015 roadmap, their strategy, there's this article, or not article, but section talking about SETI. And SETI is that field where they're looking for signals coming from outer space and see if there's anything intelligent coming in. And that group's been around for 20, 30 years, privately funded, I think, now.
Forever.
Yeah, and NASA talked about it, said, SETI's looking for possible life evidence through signal, through radio, through whatever frequencies that they can capture. And then it goes into saying, even though this is not a focus of NASA, we don't discount it because it's possible that these technosignatures on exoplanets might be found with the telescope systems we're using now because they're so powerful. What if James Webb looked at an exoplanet in the nearest star system and saw water, saw clouds, saw whatever? That would indicate there's possibility of life. And so they're saying it's real possible too, and we're not going to discount it. There could be intelligent life. And so it was kind of a soft push right in the middle of the paragraph, but they use this really strange word called technosignatures. And it was to infer something of an advanced intelligence. Once you found life, did it have advanced intelligence like ourselves, where it could take care of some of those definitions of intelligent design, intelligent characteristics, attributes. And so when they threw that word out there, it just caught my attention. I'm like, that's exactly what I'm looking for, is technosignatures off planet, intelligent life off planet. And that's kind of where it came from, is NASA defined it for me and threw it out there. They even did a workshop in 2018 in Houston, and it said Technosignature Workshop. I'm like, okay, so they're looking for them too.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're looking very hard.
Yeah, and if they find it, are they really going to tell us, right?
Exactly.
The other question.
Well, you just hit it. NASA has a public-facing side of it that has policies in place that are like a firewall. There's the backside of NASA that does a bunch of stuff that we'll never know about unless disclosure actually happens, and we get a lot of this declassified information that may point to these guys have been doing it all along. Do I believe there's a light side and a dark side to most agencies like this? Yeah. I was in the military. I know there's good side and the bad side, things that are disclosed, things that are confidential, some is top secret, and some you'll never get. That's just how some of these agencies in the government work. and NASA's one of them. So they do a lot of great stuff publicly, nailing it. Artemis is doing great. Their efforts are good. They're coming back online where Elon kind of showed them how to do it again. Amazing. So it's a great time to be alive. Trump is saying we're going to disclose everything in all the agencies and get on it. And we have Bob Lazar's, I think, documentary just came out yesterday.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, Steven Spielberg's got something coming out, I think, in June or July. And we all know that those sci-fi movies are partially documentaries.
That's right. That's how I think.
Yeah, they're kind of a hybrid. You just got to know what is possible and what's probable and what's most likely. But I even think the stuff we saw in Star Trek, eventually Star Trek will be listed as a documentary.
Right.
All the series.
I agree, because it is my favorite. Star Trek. It's my favorite. You know, people say, are you a Star Wars guy or a Star Trek? I love Star Wars, but Star Trek, something about that. You know, I see the future. Yeah.
Yes. It was a really first step into the imagination of the future and off-planet life. And fascinating series.
I mean, the flip phones back with Captain Kirk, I mean, we're past that.
That's what I'm saying. Some of this stuff has already come to fruition. I mean, people wanding you with, different stuff to see what's wrong. Well, what do you think ultrasound sensors are? They just kind of wand you and they go, yeah, here's the problem.
Right.
It's all coming to fruition, and that's the fun part.
Yeah. David, I can't wait to the holodeck. That's what I'm Oh, man. Well, look, how about another picture? Tell us about one of the other ones that you shared.
What's the next one you have in front of you?
I have the one with the star and the streak coming straight down the middle.
Oh, yeah. If you zoom in on that a little bit, you will see that object, which was flying past the sun, has perfect symmetry. It's so perfect that it easily doesn't have any of the attributes of a comet or an asteroid. And what I found funny, Tony, you won't believe this, but I have 12,000 plus of these. And they're all a little bit different looking, all different sensors, different times of the day, whatever. And in one of my presentations I had given, I put them all in a line so you can see them side by side. Just fascinating. And it's more common than you realize. But NASA doesn't talk about it, even though it's in NASA imagery. You have to zoom in on these little things to figure out what it is you're seeing. To be honest with you, it's unknown. I don't know what it is. But the structure says it's not common.
No way. I mean, so to me, as I've scrolled in and looked at it a little bit closer, it looks almost like an upside down cross, and there's two lights at the top. Is all of that natural to the picture?
Yes, that's untouched.
What?
Yeah.
You could go to the world is that?
And that's still on the NASA website. Every one of my images I sent you, and I even have posted on my website, the title of the image, when you pull it down, is the actual date time group for that sensor. You can go get it yourself and zoom in and get the exact same one, because that's all I do is I hunt off of NASA's archives.
Crazy.
Yeah, a little upsetting, isn't it?
Yeah, I joke to people sometimes. I say, I think we are a zoo, and we are in the zoo. Like, we're the ones being watched, right? It really feels like it. And if you've read the Alien Interview, the book itself, the entity there, I think they call it the EVs, described as perfectly. We're a prison planet. That's it. We're not getting off. It was built for us, but we're staying here. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we haven't gotten past the moon, I think. So
well, it depends if you believe in Ben Rich, who was the CEO of Skunkworks in 2012 when he made the comment, we can take ET home. I think we're on a different timeline now. I think we passed the subjugation of you have to stay on Earth timeline. I think we slipped into a different direction, and we're going for it. I just hope disclosure happens this year so we can at least have an adult discussion about it and say it's okay. It's not going to change anything, really. But we do need to know that we can start incorporating some of this technology for use for humanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the big part.
Okay, I want to look at, there's another picture here. You have helioviewer.org at the bottom of the picture. It's
That one.
That one is, what in the world is that? Tell us about that.
This is a fun one. I had seen somebody post this on YouTube, and I immediately go, there's no way that could be there. And so I went back to the date time group, which you see in the picture, and I said, okay, I can look this up myself. Looked it up, pulled it down, took a picture of it, put it in my files, and like, sure enough, this guy nailed it. He found something so unusual, so uncommon that it's an unknown. If it's near the surface, here's the funny part, if this is near the surface of the sun, it's as big as Jupiter. The scale is as big as Jupiter. That's what is mind-bending in the work that I do, is some of the images I have, which are, you can see is affecting the photosphere or the plasma surface of the sun, so you know it's 93 million miles out. Otherwise, you're not sure how far away from the sensor these objects are, unless it's interacting with the photosphere, chromosphere, whatever part of the surface of the sun can be affected. You don't know the exact distance. If it's super clear, like that little star one you had before, it's probably 93 million miles because it's super clear, it's not fuzzy, it's within the optical range. And it's fascinating. This one you're seeing here, literally you cannot find it on HelioViewer anymore. If you go back to the date time group, they buried it. So you get the picture before, which there's no craft. The picture after, there's no craft, it's just the sun. But the one in between, they now have archived away from the public view.
Of course.
Of course. That's why I don't talk to NASA. I just don't want my stuff to go away.
Yeah, they'll be like, thank you for that.
Yeah, exactly. We know where to look. You're dumb enough to put the daytime group on each one of them. We'll go back and we'll scrub it.
Great. Hi, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, let's get back to the show. Okay, sprinkling some questions in here. You've kind of talked about this somewhat, but I'm going to bring it up because people will ask. When you see objects up there, you've done some things to differentiate comets, asteroids, and different things like that. This goes back to what you were talking before about looking at artifacts and different things like that, right? Okay. Just because people will go, well, how does he know? Even though you just said it, I want to make sure we say it clearly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we did talk a little bit about astrobiology, right?
A little bit, yep.
So it's kind of a young thing, a young field, I guess, a young space for people to talk about. It seems like, anyway, or it's been quietly addressed and looked at, and now because of the environment that we're in, it's a little more openly talked about.
The nice thing about our society is that we've gone now from the 70s, where Star Trek and all these different movies have come out, Star Wars, where people can discuss it freely because it's a movie. Oh, it's science fiction. Did you see this part? Wasn't that cool? Can we replicate that, with toys? It's an indoctrination of a science fiction or adult cartoon concept. In fact, it's more than that. It's getting to the point where people are saying, in fact, we see some of this stuff happening above our heads. We see it out in space. Anomalies that are happening that we just don't have a good handle on. It's becoming real is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. What was science fiction is more and more becoming real, not just in discussion, but also in evidence. And everybody loves a good military film. Some jet locks in with a FLIR. Something happens where you see the target moving so fast it's impossible, or goes in the water and never slows down, comes back out, and they're like, that doesn't happen in anything. So it's fascinating to see all the different characteristics, and all this science fiction is now, people are starting to realize it's possible. And so the discussion of, hey, I saw something weird last night, to I saw this movie last year that was really cool, they're starting to blend in now because both are very strange and very new. And the thing that NASA didn't want to have happen was, hey, let's disclose that aliens are real and just hope that society doesn't collapse. And they've actually done studies, they spent millions asking that question to certain institutes to say, go study what would happen if it was was a truth that aliens are real or we're in contact with them, what would society do? What would happen from the top down? The religions, the belief system, the moral structure, all that. And every time those studies would come back saying, it's not time. Probably couldn't handle it right now.
Yeah.
So we have to tread lightly for astrobiology, but I think it's got a headwind right now. And too many people are seeing too many things, and it's starting to add up to include Bob Lazar. He's been sat on for 30, 40 years now. Poor guy is just trying to tell people, this is what I saw, this is what I worked on, and no one believed him, except a few folks that had an open mind going, that sounds possible. And here we are today, and realizing Bob called it the element 115 that they said that didn't exist, all of a sudden exists. And some of the things that he described for craft, people are seeing. More people are coming out saying, yeah, I touched the same thing. I saw what Bob saw, or I worked on those things. David Adair was involved heavily with that kind of stuff, and you'll see his interviews on YouTube. But again, it's coming out to mainstream, and society's just going to have to figure out what to do with it, because like AI, it's here.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny. I'll have a series, small series, short, coming out in June, talking about religion and UFOs. And the thing is, there is more effort and acceptance in many religions about this. I think of the Catholic Church as actually spoken openly about the possibility, and yeah, we could probably even baptize them, is what they say. You know what I mean? So there's stuff going on like that. I live in Utah. Mormons are the predominant religion out here.
Yeah.
Mormons believe in life outside of this planet. It's part of their belief system. They believe
Nice.
in life outside of this planet and other people like us too.
Right.
So I think it's not as crazy as it can be, but there are people that are pretty much siloed, and this is all it can be. They need to keep watching, because they need to make sure they have an explanation for some of this. It's not just demonic. It's not just demonic.
Totally agree. Anytime in this field somebody says it's definitely this or definitely that, they're definitely beginners. They're just now getting into stretching their paradigm a little bit. I listened to somebody say, well, I think they're demons. And this is a high-level official. And I'm thinking, you're right in the sense of good and evil, but every society has good and evil.
Yeah.
Why would an off-planet society just be purely good? If they have choices, I'm sure there's a few knuckleheads on their planet that they have to deal with from time to time, just like we have a lot of knuckleheads on this planet, and we have systems to handle that. So I don't think purity in our realm is something that is off-planet. I think we still struggle between each other here, each other out there, even different alien species, if you believe that far out, which I do, that they have their own societal issues because of free choice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, open your eyes, everybody. There's a lot going on here. And once again, I think it's a lot of different things, to be honest with you. We see enough evidence here that there are probably pieces of these phenomena that can fall into any of those categories. And so,
Right.
yeah, don't say it can only be this or it can only be that, because they're just not, that's not what the evidence is showing. Yeah.
And we still have to be open-minded to the point where stop pointing at people saying, well, I know you don't, or it's only this category just because I say it's my opinion. That kind of talk has to end, especially if you want to expand and consider all things. Because what you and I are talking about, what I'm showing you in the satellite data, is physical attributes that can be measured by a sensor. We're not even talking about interdimensional yet.
Right.
That's a whole nother level. Stuff that's outside space-time, 3D, whatever it is, that we're locked in. What about the fifth dimension? What about the other dimensions out there? And so there is such, I think, a spread of intelligence that's throughout our own galaxy, that you have some that are flying by in these craft that we're catching on solar satellite images that you're seeing, and some that interdimensionally travel. They don't need that type of craft. Yeah. They're at the next level. So I think there's a whole spectrum of intelligence, a whole spectrum of species, and we're all doing our things at our level. We're just trying to get off our planet. We're just trying to prove there's life somewhere else. And they're all looking at us like giggling. Are you serious? This is where you're at after all these years? You're speculating?
Right.
So it's interesting to see the levels of conversation people are having as they grapple to open their paradigm a little bit more. The intelligence levels of the species off planet is the full spectrum within what we're talking about as far as materialistic measurables, visible things. And when you see certain species fly by the sun, it's because they're at the top of their technological level. They may have other levels they're trying to attain to, like we are. Like, we're trying to get off the planet, we're trying to at least get back to the moon, maybe get back to Mars with more sensors or even people. So you have to look at life as a full spectrum of possibilities, because if you throw in interdimensional beings that don't have to travel in craft, that literally just appear because they're in 5, 6, 7, whatever dimensions that are out there, that's a whole nother conversation. So I just tell people, be open-minded, don't point at each other. Just have a friendly discussion and talk about what's possible.
Yeah, because one of the things that I think of sometimes is even the speed. Like, we are probably standing still while things, because there's been things that have been caught on camera that move extremely fast. Strange, weird shapes. What is that? Like, okay, maybe nobody's really looking at it, but it's not something that couldn't be a reality. Just like we have a snail and then us running by the snail. You know what I mean? Like, maybe we are standing still and other things are happening so fast around us we can't capture it. You know, it can be a lot of things.
Agreed. The possibilities within that realm of speed is simply time travel and propulsion systems that we're not familiar with. Or maybe we are. Maybe the things that we're capturing on film could be drones that are anti-gravitic, and they may be ours. So when you look at possibilities like that, the real work is it ours or theirs? And that's what we struggle with in MUFON, is can we identify it as a craft that we have? Has it been announced to the public, like TR-3Bs? Totally cloaked in secrecy for I don't know how many years, but we have so many TR-3Bs, which are those black triangles that get reported here in Florida. I'm convinced it's ours. They're straight line structures. We're really good with straight lines. I think aliens are really good with weird rounded surfaces.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it's ours. We have too many Air Force aircraft flying along with them in tandem, and it's not chasing them. I think it's really a training flight and or a test flight where you have multiple craft that they get up and fly. Being in the military, I understand that type of stuff. So you may have a top secret piece of equipment that you don't want to go down, so you have other aircraft around it to either protect it and or make sure it gets to its destination safely and quickly. If we know that, we can say that's a known unknown, at least for the general public. But there are truly things that I think are off-world unknowns that are mixing in with some of this, and that's the tough part.
That is the tough part.
Trying to determine that.
Well, and not to spend more than a second here, but you know this, being in the military, I mean, what do we really know about the last 50, 60 years of technological advances with even our government? We know the stealth bomber, which is from the 60s. You know, what has happened between then and now that we don't even know about?
The very fact that our visibility on such technologies went away, and in fact it did it in publications. I forget, it was like Popular Science, some of the older publications back in the early 60s that were informing the public of the latest and greatest of GE has this new engine, or Lockheed Martin has this new development. And they started to get into engines that were going to defy gravity. And then in 1962 or 3, every publication went quiet. It just stopped talking about it. And I think that was done on purpose. I know it was done on purpose. And that was pretty much when they blinded us from all the technology that they probably picked out of Roswell and other crash sites, and said, you know what, we're making it happen. It's coming to fruition. We don't want the public to know.
Yeah.
And so they stopped that kind of stuff. Scientific American, I used to watch and read that, I should say, all the time. And they have some edgy stuff, but it's always astrophysics. It's always something along a line that's not intelligent, off-planet intelligence, but something technological that's really cool here. You know, where we superheat plasma to the, 10 times that of the sun. Okay, that's great. But what about this life off planet or the folks that gave us that intelligence?
Right.
No one wants to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. What we've had crashed, what we've archaeologically found, there's all that. I mean, opens
So
up
true.
a lot more doors, for sure.
Exactly. And that's all I'm trying to do is keep the discussion alive with what I'm doing. Instead of collecting stamps, I collect technosignatures and NASA satellite imagery. And I just simply say, here it is. Even my website, which is solarsuspicions.com, is only half built. If you go to the database, you can pull it down and get all the pictures you want. There's like 1,200 sitting there. And it's you can't join because the join button's broken. I never got it fixed. So all this stuff is for free, and I'm happy to do that. I just want to have those discussions with evidence. I don't want to be one of those guys that said, well, I saw this one craft fly over me and I didn't really get a good video of it, and I want people to believe me. Well, you know how many stories there are out there of one-offs that you can't prove? Some people have some good videos. Some people have some good pictures. Don't get me wrong. That's more and more common now, which is nice. But when I can make NASA tell on itself and they don't know it yet, I kind of giggle and I go, check this out. And it's not my camera.
I love that. I love that. Well, David, I do want to look at another picture that you have.
Okay.
I'm interested in the one. Well, let's look at the one that looks like a flare out. It's a bluish green picture
Yes.
of the sun. It looks like a different way of looking at that picture. Maybe you're using it a different way, or there's a filter or something. But there's an outcropping of something that's shooting out.
Yes, that picture happens to be a multi-sensor overlay. So you have 3 different colors that are post-produced once the gray images come back in. And they post-produce the colors so you know what frequencies you're looking at for that bandpass sensor. In this case, what I did is I took it and then I changed the macros on it. I didn't add anything to it. I just brightened it up a little bit, threw a little contrast in every pixel. It was the same. And then I saw this strange object to the upper right. It kind of looks like a ship.
It looks like a Klingon ship.
Yeah, and that's what everybody says. They relate it exactly the same. It goes right back to Star Wars. And this was involved in a CME, as you can see the plasma riding around it in this particular photo, because it looked like in the sequence of the CME blowing off the sun, it was just a normal natural CME until there's this object that sits there. And I stopped it on that image and simply just cleaned it up, and I'm like, that's not plasma. Otherwise, that's the smartest plasma in the galaxy because it organized into a shape that looks opaque.
Right.
And a very interesting shot. Again, it was just in one frame because the CME was a quick one. It snapped and it was gone. So I don't know what to make of this other than it's not normal. I just don't know what it is. And it's massive. It's bigger than the Earth.
That's,
And that's one of those ones that was involved with a photosphere or a process on the sun, and it is now, I can say it's about 93 million miles away, so in comparison to the Earth, it's bigger than the Earth.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, by a long shot.
It's a beautiful picture, too, actually.
Yeah, you wouldn't mind putting that on your wall. Just hard to explain to your guests. What am I seeing here? It's not a family picture. Well, it could be. We're not sure yet.
Oh, man. Yeah, and as big as the Earth. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, questions to sprinkle in here. Do you believe there are gaps in how modern science explains solar behavior? And do you think if so, it's more about interpretation or missing data? Because it feels like they've got the data, they're not looking at it. So.
Yes and no. They have a computer system that takes in all the solar data from all the different sensors called the LAMSL. It's an acronym that you personally as a citizen scientist can go and open up the website for the LAMSL computer, and it'll give you a drop down of all the different solar activities possible that astrophysicists have identified as a part of the sun. Holes, flares, filaments, all sorts of different things, probably a 30 or 40 different lists that you can check off. It's like, this day, this time, this particular picture, I want these events. And the LAMSA will come back and say, these are where all those things happened. It'll actually pick it out for you. Fascinating scientific tool. The problem is astrophysicists and their friend engineers designed the LAMSA computer to look at only physical attributes of the sun. Literally, if a spaceship ran over to the sun, pulled a bunch of plasma off, and ran off again, LAMSA wouldn't know what to do with it. It's not designed for astrobiology. It's only designed for astrophysics.
Somebody needs to rewrite that program.
Well, that's why the astrobiologists and astrophysicists don't eat together in lunchrooms. They have separate tables. They don't talk to each other much. They're just not interested.
Yeah,
I don't know what the problem is.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we see that in other studies as well. Their science is, it's crazy.
It's stovepiped. They're brought up to just think one way, and anything past that breaks their paradigm.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Do you think humanity is overconfident in its understanding of the sun and space in general? I say yes. Or maybe they're just not thinking about it. I don't know.
It's not something that's in the forefront of news, and it's glossed over in the sciences and in public education. Here's the sun, it's a ball of gas, it's a big fusion reactor. Next.
Yes.
And that's it. It doesn't get much playtime, and unfortunately, we've all been brought up on misnomers of what the sun actually is and what it does, how it's connected electromagnetically to the Earth, the galactic current sheet that the sun has to bear, the sinusoidal waves that it has to handle, which also translates into the sinusoidal waves Earth has to handle. It's why our magnetic field is failing right now. It's a 12,500 year cycle that our sun and our planets all go through, and it's just now coming out as provable science. Peer-reviewed science comes back and says this is a no-brainer now that you look at the evidence. We all grew up not knowing that, and our kids don't know that, and so now you've got these adults that are scrambling to get the truth out, and it's not in the textbook still. They don't even talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know. Well,
we got a long ways to go still for education.
We do, for sure.
So hopefully the movies will help, because the kids will be interested and they'll see it and they'll answer some of their questions.
It's got to take that probably, unfortunately. But yeah. I want to look at this picture that you sent. This one, it's also pretty colorful, and I don't know how to really explain it. It's the one where there's like, in the very middle of the picture, there's like some objects. It looks like it's coming in, or it's in the middle of the screen with a trail behind it. I don't know how to describe it. It's cool looking.
It's one of those weird ones that was dead center of the surface of the sun with the multi-spectral layer on it. So this is like, I think it's, if I can read this right, it's got the 211 angstrom and a whole bunch of different, maybe 2 other filters over it. So you get this beautiful color image. But what it also shows is that this object that has a trail coming off the surface of the sun was captured by all 3. That's significant. I can't tell you what this is because it was there and it was gone. But it was one of those rare objects that was super bright and it looks like an origin deep within the sun, but the next frame after that is just a streak. You don't know where this thing went. That's how fast it was going, I guess, at the point of capture. So, no, I don't have an answer for you, Tony, on what this is. It's another unknown, but it's not a camera glitch, and it's not an artifact for processing or compressing the data from the satellites to the computer or to your screen now. It's just beautiful.
It is.
The beautiful unknown.
It'll keep people thinking, that's for sure, the unknown.
Absolutely. So, yeah, this is a fun one I like sharing.
So, David, as you look at these pictures and things like this, what is this all about what is flying in and around or moving within the area of the sun, or is there something different about the sun? Like you talked about, and this is true, the sun, what we believe it to be, and how it's, we don't spend a lot of time beyond that in science talking about it. I do know that there's some interesting properties about plasmas and stuff like that I think we have yet to spend time really diving into that. like
Right.
completely. There are small groups of people that talk about it. But the sun, it's a big ball of plasma that's a reaction. What do you think about the sun? Is there more to it than what's up there that we have been taught?
The sun actually has more elements to it than you realize. They have done so many peer-reviewed studies on it, and the latest science that I have picked up on, they think it's got a surface to it. They know that's got a surface to it because it ripples. When the CMEs come up and fall back into the sun, there's actually a rippling effect, which means you have some sort of a liquid. They think it's liquid metallized hydrogen. So what's beneath that, they're not sure, but it's like a lake of metallized hydrogen. And in fact, the sun's hotter away from the surface than it is on the surface. It actually gets cooler. There is a hot shield around the sun that's more so than the surface of the sun. But there's a surface. That's new. Everybody's like, well, it's just a ball of gas. No, it's not.
That's what I always thought, but wondered if that was true. So there's now people thinking, okay.
Right, the new science, which still fights with the old science. I mean, you get scientists that grow up in the old way, like, that can't be true, blah, blah, blah. But you see the new equations and the new evidence in some of these peer-reviewed journals are saying, yeah, it's not a ball of gas. It doesn't have the same characteristics when these events occur, and you couldn't measure an actual wave rippling across the top if it was gas. Gas doesn't ripple, but liquids do. So in the sense of, is it just plasma? Plasma is that fourth element people are still dealing with and playing with, and what can it do? Is it intelligent? Is it just another resource we can structure into something else? We're just now getting into plasma physics, and it's fun. It's something you and I had never heard about when we were going through school. Again, one of those things, you get to be an adult and you start listening to these scientists argue it out on podcasts or their channels, and you realize there's some relevance to it. And yes, that's a new science, and I think it has a depth to it that's just barely being scratched. So I look forward to seeing people deal with the plasma question and where it ends up.
Yeah, for sure. This next question is further away. I'll just say it that way. It's a little bit far removed from the topic that we're talking about. Do you think there's anything about the sun that can... that unexplained phenomena here on Earth, either to the environment, psychologically, paranormal-wise? I mean, I don't think, but I'm going to ask you the question as you're looking at these things. Is there anything like strange that's kind of this one thing that you've put in the back of your mind that says that's really weird and maybe it impacts something else?
I think we need to go back to explore the sun with an understanding that there is an intelligence mix possibly to it. And I say that with the caveat of some say the sun is nothing more than an energy portal, a wormhole type of thing. I think the sun has characteristics that we're still trying to explore, but I do believe the sun produces, objects that, not objects, but matter that comes out of it, either by explosion or by rotation, like the plasma ropes that fly off of it during an ejection. I don't see how those don't become a planet, or don't become a moon, or don't become part of either our solar system or the next.
Yeah.
Because it's material that we're watching come off and do strange things. I do think that there is an electromagnetic connection from the sun to the earth that affects our health directly. You can go into the peer-reviewed archives and articles that are starting to relate people that are sensitive, cardio issues, that when there is a sun solar flare uptick, so do heart attacks. They go up in number. So there is a cosmic connection between our sun and earth that is deeper than people realize, more intrusive than people understand, and we're just now getting to the science of correlations. The sun does this. What's happening with the plant life or human life now because of it? And you'll see trends. You'll see something happen and there's a trend to the point of being able to predict earthquakes. The sun has characteristics that force Earth into a more predominance of earthquakes, and they use the sun to predict earthquakes. So that's some really heavy linkage when you're starting to realize the physical aspects of the sun and the, even the medical aspects, where the Earth is losing its magnetic shield now, so you get groups of migrating birds going to the wrong place. You get whales beaching themselves, unusually high numbers, in the wrong place. Certain magnetic systems, bees, whatever insects that are using the magnet forces of the Earth, they're actually swaying to what's happening with the Earth as it's losing its magnetic shield, or at least it's waning. We're at that 12,000 or 12,500 cycle for the sun. And some people like Ben Davidson on Space Weather News channel on YouTube, if you listen to Ben Davidson, he describes it beautifully in the sense of our sun, about every 12,000 years, micronovas. It stays there, but it sheds its outer layer, just like other stars do around us. And when that happens, things change. And it doesn't happen until the magnetic shield is almost gone and the reverse of polarity between the sun and the Earth, they go in conjunction. Major things happen on the planet, to include absorbing all that power from the sun. And it's been discussed that it may unlock the surface of our planet and allow it to wobble a little bit and then reorient. That kind of describes how these pyramids get underneath the ocean. No one builds a pyramid underneath the ocean.
Right.
But it may not have been underwater 12,000 years ago, maybe 14,000 years ago. It was on land and it was built and it's right where it's supposed to be, but now it's moved to a different equatorial spot and maybe underwater.
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. I'm glad that you're bringing that up because, yeah, I was curious about that when we talk about pole shift and tectonic shiftings and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, yeah, 12,000. So we understand that there's a significant thing that happens around that time period. What it will look like here, we'll see, right? But we're about that time. We're about that time, right? Is that what we're thinking?
That's what they're saying. The poles are moving out really fast right now. The magnetic North Pole is on the move. It's cutting across towards Russia, if not already in the Russian territory as we speak. South Pole is moving out. It's going towards the Indian Ocean on the, I think, the east side of the continent. So the evidence of the ocean floor being changed magnetically every so often, as you see the rifts in the floor, they say, well, it flips back and forth. Well, you can't have a magnetic flip back and forth without a magnetic flip happening somewhere in that history of the oceanic floor being built. And it's cyclic. It is like a sine wave, like a clock, like a Rolex. It's precise. It's coming. We just don't know the exact date and time, but that flip is going to happen one more time. It's just as natural as breathing. That's how the galaxy ebbs and flows with its cyclic electromagnetic current sheet that affects all stars, all planets. Yeah. So we're kind of on the ocean of this vibrating system that's unseen but powerful and affects everything it touches. We're just part of that story.
Yeah, and not to go here for more than a second, but it looks like that potentially could be catastrophic, right? And it makes it kind of lends to that whole theory that's come out a bit now that there's different iterations of civilization, and maybe we are just another one in the past history of multiple shifts and stuff.
I am of the same mindset. I've seen enough data and looked at enough peer-reviewed papers to realize the latest and greatest science for geology points right to that. We're going to go through it. It's coming, and it happens every 3,000, every 6,000, every 12,000 years. There's these sinusoidal shifts within our environment. I think the Noah event, right at the 6,000 year mark, that was 6,000 years ago, and you can see how that vibration and harmonics through our own geology are super consistent to the point where you can map it out. And like I said, a gentleman by the name of Ben Davidson on Space Weather News has a disaster series of videos, and he maps it out, shows you exactly on the timeline where we are, and he puts a little dot, you are here, and it's not looking good.
Yeah. What, Ben Davis, is that who you said?
Ben Davidson.
Ben Davidson.
He's a really good researcher and has been doing YouTube channels talking about this for at least 5, 10, I don't know how many years, but he's really good with the graphics, and he always backs it up with peer-reviewed studies for geology, astrophysics, all of that stuff. He'll show you the peer-reviewed charts and where we're going with the data, and it's like a fire hose, but if you slow it down or watch it a couple of times, you get what's going on. You say, okay, now I see this particular event series is not unnatural, it's as natural as breathing.
Yeah. Well, I think, and that's an interesting thing, those people who are religious and very biblical, and I'm a religious guy, so I'm just saying, we wonder why Scripture only goes back so many years, right? Well,
Right.
maybe that's when things reset, right? So there's, if you think about it that way,
Exactly.
it fits. Yeah.
It does. Even in Revelations 12:12, it talks about those who tabernacle in the heavens. Woe to those that are on earth, but those who tabernacle in the heavens, be grateful that you're not on earth. Well, who lives in the heavens? I mean, if you read and you reread and you realize, what's God talking about? Who is hanging out in the heavens? It's possible it's other life. And I'm not talking extra dimensional or anything like that. It could be just other life, like we're seeing now near the sun.
Yeah.
Or on this planet. Oh, by the way, to answer your question before, is it just solar satellite systems that capture this stuff? No. Weather satellite systems. I've had a Hubble picture or image of a Crab Nebula, and I saw one of my little solar satellite dots in there cutting through. You just have to zoom in. You really have to be a detective and just zoom in, and all of a sudden you see, I've seen that before. It was by the sun. Or weather satellites. I've got pictures of just weird objects with a weather satellite. It's still a satellite. It's still looking at Earth, but something zips underneath it, and you go, that's not a plane.
Yeah, that's...
That looks like a great Chinese star.
Yeah,
What?
it's crazy. Well, David, tell us, just summarize solar suspicions for those who are listening, in case they want to pick up your book. I mean, what will they experience as they go through that book?
It was really just written as my journey into this field and how it started, like we talked about before, where my background's in there, my education's in there, and how I stumbled into even looking at these images to start with. And so it really is, the first third of it is a good description of how I got to where I am. And the rest of it starts to get to a technical point. I try to base this on facts. I have images of the solar satellite camera systems. I talk about how they function. I talk about the artifacts that they create. And I even put pictures and images of those artifacts so you know what is common as far as this dot is really an asteroid or comet. Don't think it's a UFO just because it's a dot. Or, big squares missing in the image. Well, that's just data transfer compression problems. I describe as many artifacts as I can, and then I lead you into the things that are not artifacts, that can't be described as common or known. And I throw in a few images like we've done at this session, where you can take a look at it and say, that doesn't make sense, and especially when I describe what's going on in the picture and why it's unique. And so, yeah, I've got about 60,000 of these crazy images on my computer. I share about 1,200 on my website, and I give you a couple just to take a look at. And so Solar Suspicions really is a focus of my journey on solar satellite imagery, and some of the suspicious images that had objects in them I just couldn't describe, and I still can't to this day. But I bring it out for public consumption and discussion.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just the few that you shared with me, I'm like, what in the world?
Yeah, what's going on here?
Well, David, as we get ready to wrap up here, what's the one idea, thought, or just what should people walk away with after thinking about this? And then is there anything else you want to talk about that we didn't get to, or in this end here portion of the podcast?
I want people to have an open mind. I bring the receipts just so that discussion can simmer in people's brains a little bit and not be so judgmental and not be so quick to point out that is offensive to me. Well, I'm sorry if it offends you, but this is data. And I am coming not with a single story, but with almost an overload of data proving my point that we have to consider other life off the planet. And it doesn't mean God doesn't exist. It means God's greater than we ever realized. How crazy would it be to have to manage a galaxy of life forms like us? I don't even know how that would even start. But in my final analysis, it made my belief in God greater. It expanded a lot of things in my belief system. I grew up a Southern Baptist kid, and I understood this much of reality until my paradigm started expanding, because people were talking about unusual things that were captured. It was real. This is a picture. This is an event. This is what happened to so-and-so. And when you work in the field like I do as a field investigator for MUFON, you see all this data being gathered, and there is no way it's psychology. There's no way it's just something in our minds or misidentification, which there is a lot of, but you can't call everything swamp gas. Eventually, you have enough data to say it's more than that. And if it's more than that, what's that lead to as a person, and how I understand this universe around me, this creation that I didn't create, I just get to explore and enjoy.
Yeah. Amen to that. So true.
Yeah.
Well, David, how can people pick up your book? And are you working on anything new, any new projects, anything on the horizon for you in the upcoming year or two?
The answer to your first question is the book is on Amazon. If you want to pick it up, just type in Solar Suspicions, and it should have a big yellow sun on the front of it on the book. The projects ahead of me are really just to continue to add to my collection of data that I've already pulled together. It's important that I get as much data as possible, because when you're doing peer-reviewed analysis or you're doing statistics, you have to have a good database and enough data that makes it robust. So I'm still in the process of collecting as many pictures as I can, images that have objects in them that are unexplained. And quite frankly, on a personal level, I am starting to get interested in the conscious side of things. I know a lot of folks know who Stephen Greer is, and he's a CEO guy, and he's been talking to people a lot about the consciousness of our lives. He's got his thing going, and I studied it a bit, and I wish him the best and everything. But there is a lot of exploration that I've got to do that involves remote viewing, our natural ability to see things with a blindfold on, things that are not taught in school, but now we're realizing the human mind can actually go above and beyond this physical body. I'll be honest with you, remote viewing has got my attention right now. So I'm studying it, I'm looking into it. I don't know how people do it. I know the military uses it all the time. I know folks at a third level that actually have done it. Is DMT real? Yeah, it probably gets you to where you want to go if you're looking for a dimensional change. Ketamine, you want to look for a dimensional change. All these different psycho-type drugs or dissociative-type drugs are getting people to where they want to go. I want to do it naturally. I want to learn how to focus myself and train my brain to experience some of these higher conscious levels, and I think that's going to be the next direction I go.
Yeah, that's a whole other area that's very interesting. And you're right about doing it a certain way. People are, I wouldn't be excited about trying the substances because I like to lose control. But there's people in the world here, Tibet, other places that have found other ways to just put themselves in a place where they're now able to access things. So it can be done without. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And I think that's safer. I think it's purer if you can get the process figured out without having to rely on pharmaceuticals. No doubt. I'm not a proponent of that. I would never do that. I just know that it's real, and those who don't do it can still be remote viewers. Those who have been used by the military or trained, like the Monroe Institute, why not go and learn what they're teaching? And I think it'll help recenter my paradigm of where I fit into this life and how I can unleash some of the capabilities I've had all along, and everybody else.
Yeah, and it touches into other areas like OBE, near death. All these things are tapping into stuff that, they all appear to be connected in weird ways. If we could understand it someday, that's the one thing, right? I love what you're going to be tackling next. That sounds so cool. And hey, for those people out there who are thinking of, because I know some people, are very religious and are thinking anything outside of the book is not I shouldn't spend any time on it. And my feeling about that, because the scriptures are important, is simply, what's the point of the scriptures? To teach us how to return back, right? How to be the best people. He never said, I'm going to tell you how everything works.
Right.
He's not going to say that, right? And there's definitely things that fall outside of the parameter of what's important scripturally, spiritually, that really lead to all the mysteries that are out there.
Agreed.
And so carefully, prayerfully look at those things, people, and you can dive there too if you want. Yeah.
I think all roads lead to God, in my opinion. I will eventually find that is true, but I also believe that we've been repressed and suppressed intellectually to not enjoy some of those natural attributes God gave us. So it doesn't take away from God. In fact, every time I turn around, I go, God's that big? Really? That's incredible. He's even that much more. So I find this journey fascinating, but God's always in the center of it.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I always try to end up with on my episodes is say, hey, there's a lot of strange and unexpected in our reality. So
Yes.
always keep your eyes, ears, and minds open. And then I always say, until next time, stay safe. But that's a thing, that's for sure. We have to keep our eyes open and just see there's a lot of things going on. So if you're
Agreed.
one of those people who run back and forth to work and you're focused on and you're kind of doing the rat race, open up. Think about some of this stuff, because we are in a very special time and things are happening, and it's exciting.
It is.
Sure.
It's a good time to be alive.
David, this has been great. Thank you so much for being on the show. Let me keep you on for just a minute when we close up here.
All right,
But
thank
there
you,
you go,
Tom.
everybody. What an interesting topic. And now you've seen some pictures and some things. Maybe the next time you try to look at the sun, you may want to do it not with your bare eyes, but there's stuff going on in our sky and up there that people can't explain. So, awesome. David, thank you again.
Thank you, Tony.
And I'll keep you on the line here.
It's been an honor.
Hi, we need your help to get bigger and better. How? Just like, comment, and subscribe. It's free and it only takes a few seconds. So thank you, and remember, there's a lot of strange and unexpected in our reality, so always keep your eyes, ears, and minds open and stay safe. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.